Hold still, go to sleep. That... I love you. If that's what's comfortable, then go ahead. Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis, and we'll try chapter 6, the beginning of Uncle Andrew's troubles, one more time. Let go, screamed Polly. I'm not touching you, said Tiggery. Then their heads came into the pool at once, and once more the sunny quietness of the wood between the worlds was all about them. And it seemed richer and warmer and more peaceful than ever after the staleness and ruin of that place they had just left. I think that if they had been given the chance, they would have forgotten who they were and where they came from, and would have lain down and enjoyed themselves, half asleep, listening to the growing of trees. But this time there was something that kept them as wide awake as possible, for as soon as they had gotten out onto the grass, they had found that they were not alone. The queen, whichever you'd like to call her, had come up with them, holding fast by Polly's hair. That was why Polly had been shouting, "Let go!" This proved, by the way, another thing about the rings, which Uncle Andrew hadn't told Diggory because he didn't know himself. In order to jump from world to world by one of those rings, you don't need to be wearing or touching it yourself. It's enough if you are touching someone else who is touching it. In that way, they work like a magnet, and everyone knows that if you pick up a pen with a magnet, any other pen which is touching the first pen will come too.
Yes. Mighty fine.
Now that you saw her in the wood, Queen Jadis looked different. She was much paler than she had been, so pale that hardly any of her beauty was left, and she was stooped and seemed to be finding it hard to breathe, as if the air of the place stifled her. Neither of the children felt that in the least afraid of her now. Let go of my hair, said Polly. What do you mean by it? Let her go at once. Here, let go of her hair at once, said Diggory. They both turned and struggled with her. They were stronger than she, and in a few seconds they had forced her to let go. She reeled back, panting, and there was the look of terror in her eyes. Quick, Diggory, said Polly. Change the rings and go into the home pool. Help! Help! Mercy! Cried the witch in a faint voice, staggering after them. Take me with you. You cannot leave me in this horrible place. It's killing me. It's a reason of state, said Polly spitefully, like when you killed all those people in your own world. Well, don't be quick, Diggory. Do be quick, Diggory. They had put on their green rings, but Diggory said, Oh, bother, what are we to do? He couldn't help feeling a little sorry for the Queen. Oh, don't be such an ass. Don't be such an ass, said Polly. 10 to 1 she's only shamming. Do come on. And both the children plunged into the home pool. It's a good thing It's a good thing we made a mark, thought Polly. But as they jumped, Diggory felt the large, cold finger and thumb had caught him by the ear. And as they sank down, and the confused shapes of her own world began to appear, the grip of that finger and thumb grew stronger. The witch, which was apparently recovering her strength, Diggory struggled and kicked, but it was not the least of use. In a moment they found themselves in Uncle Andrew's study, and there was Uncle Andrew himself, staring at the wonderful creature that Diggory had brought back from beyond the world. And while he might stare, Diggory and Polly stared too. There was no doubt that the witch had gotten over her faintness, and now that one saw her in our own world, with ordinary things around her, she fairly took one's breath away. In Charn she had been alarming enough. In London she was terrifying. For one thing, they had not realized till now how very big she was. Hardly human. Hardly human is what Diggory had thought when he had looked at her. And he may have been right, for some say there is giantish blood in the royal family at Charn. But even her height was nothing compared with her beauty, her fierceness, her wildness. She looked 10 times more alive than the most of the people that one meets in London. Uncle Andrew was bowing and rubbing his hands, looking, to tell the truth, extremely frightened. He seemed a little shrimp of a creature beside the witch, and yet, as Polly said afterwards, there was a sort of likeness between her face and his. Something in that expression was the look that all wicked magicians have, the mark, as Jadis had said, she could not find in Diggory's face. One good thing about seeing the two together was that you would never again be afraid of Uncle Andrew any more than you would have been afraid of a worm after you had met a rattlesnake, or afraid of a cow after you had met a mad bull. "Oh, pooh," thought Diggory to himself. "Him a magician? Not much. Well, she's the real thing." Uncle Andrew kept on rubbing his hands and bowing. He was trying to say something very polite, but his mouth had gone dry. His mouth had gone all dry, so that he could not speak. His experiment with the rings, as he had called it, was turning out more successful than he had liked. For though he had dabbled in magic for years, he had always left all the dangers, as far as one can, to other people. Nothing at all like this had ever happened to him before. Then Jadis spoke, but not very loud. There was something in her voice that made the whole room quiver. "Where is the magician who has called me into this world?" Madam," gasped Uncle Andrew, I am most honoured, highly gratified, and a most unexpected pleasure. Well, if I could only have the opportunity of making any preparations, I. "Where is the magician, fool?" said Jadis, and I don't know why I trailed that. I am, madam. Well, I suppose. Well, I hope you'll excuse any liberty these naughty children may have taken. Well, I assure you there was no intention." "You," said the Queen, a still more terrible voice. Then one stride she crossed the room. She seized a great handful of Uncle Andrew's grey hair and pulled his head back, so that his face looked up into hers. Then she studied his face, just as he had studied Diggory's face in the Palace of Charn. He blinked and licked his lips nervously all the time. At last she let him go so suddenly that he reeled back against the wall. "I see," she said scornfully. "You are a magician of a sort. Stand up, dog, and don't sprawl there as if you were speaking to your equals. How do you come to know magic? You are not of royal blood, I swear to that." Well, not perhaps in the strictest sense," stammered Uncle Andrew. "Not exactly royal, ma'am. The Kettleys are, however, very old family, and an old Dorsetshire family, ma'am." "Peace," said the witch. "I see what you are. You are a little peddling magician who works by rules and books. You are no real magic. There is no real magic in your blood and heart. You know your kind was made an end of it in my world 1,000 years ago. But here I shall allow you to be my servant."
"Well, I should be most happy. Well, delighted to be of any service. Pleasure, I assure you, madam."
"Peace! You talk far too much. Listen to your first task. I see we are in a large city. Procure me at once a chariot, or a flying carpet, or a well-trained dragon, or whatever the usual is for a royal, noble person in your land. Then bring me to places where I can get clothes, and jewels, and slaves, fit for my rank. Tomorrow I will begin the conquest of the world."
"Well, I'll go by cab at once, ma'am,"
gasped Uncle Andrew. "Stop!" said the witch, just as he reached the door. "Do not dream of treachery. My eyes can see through walls and into the minds of men. They will be on you wherever you go. At the first sign of disobedience, I will lay such spells on you that anything you sit down on will feel like red-hot irons, and wherever you lie in a bed, there will be invisible blocks of ice at your feet. Now go." The old man went out, looking at the dog.
"Oh, no."
The old man went out looking like a dog with its tail between its legs. The children were now finished, and Jadis would have something to say about them about what had happened in the wood. As it turned out, however, she never mentioned it either then nor afterwards. I think Diggory thinks too that in her mind was a sort of that her mind was of a sort which cannot remember that quiet place at all. However often you took her there, however long you were left there, she would still know nothing about it. Now that she was left alone with the children, she took no notice of either of them, and that was like her too. In Charn she had taken no notice of Polly until the very end, because Diggory was the one she had wanted to make use of. And now that she had Uncle Andrew, she took no notice of Diggory. I expect most witches are like that. They are not interested in things or people unless they can use them. They are terribly practical. So there was silence in the room for a minute or two, but you could tell by the way Jadis had tapped her foot on the floor that she was growing impatient. Presently she said, as if to herself, "What is that old fool doing? I should have brought a whip." She stalked out of the room in pursuit of Uncle Andrew, without one glance at the children.
"Whew!"
said Polly, letting out a long breath of relief. "And now I must be getting home. It's frightfully late. I shall catch it."
"Well, do come back as soon as you can," said Diggory. "This is simply ghastly having her here. We must make some sort of plan."
"That's up to your uncle now," said Polly. "It was he who started all this messing about with magic."
"All the same, you'll come back, won't you? Hang it all, you can't leave me here alone and escape like this. In a scrape like this."
"Well, I shall go home by tunnel," said Polly rather coldly. "That'll be the quickest way. And if you want me to come back, hadn't you better say sorry? Hadn't you better say you're sorry?"
"Sorry?" exclaimed Diggory. "Well now, if it just isn't like a girl, what have I done?"
"Oh, nothing, of course," said Polly sarcastically. "Only nearly screwed my wrist off in that room with the waxworks. Like a cowardly bully, only struck the bell with the hammer. Like a silly idiot, only turned back in the woods so that she had time to catch hold of you before we jumped into our own pool. Well, that's all."
"Oh,"
said Diggory, very surprised.
"Well, all right. I'll say it. I'm sorry. And I'm really sorry about what happened in Waxwork Room. There, I say I'm sorry. Now, do be decent. Come back, please. I shall be in a frightful hole if you don't.
I don't see what's going to happen. I don't see what's going to happen to you. It's Mrs. Kettley who's going to... It's Mr. Kettley's going to sit on red hard chairs and have ice in his bed, isn't it?
Well, isn't that a sort of thing? Said Diggory.
Well, it isn't that sort of thing, said Diggory.
What I'm bothered about is Mother, I suppose. Suppose that creature comes into her room. Well, she might frighten her to death.
Oh, I see, said Polly in a rather different voice.
All right. Well, call it Pax. I'll come back, if I can, but I must go now.
And she crawled through the little door, into the tunnel, and into that dark place among the rafters, which seemed so exciting and adventurous a few hours ago. Almost done. Where did I go? A few hours ago seemed quite tame and homely now. We must get back to Uncle Andrew. His poor old heart went pit-a-pat as he staggered down the attic stairs and kept on dabbing at his forehead with his handkerchief. When he reached his bedroom, which was the floor below, he locked himself in. The first thing he did was to grope his wardrobe for a bottle and a wine-glass, which he always kept hidden there when Aunt Letty couldn't find them. He poured himself out a glassful of some nasty grown-up drink, and drank it off in one gulp. Then he drew a deep breath.
Upon my word, he said to himself, I'm dreadfully shaken, most upsetting, and at my time of life.
He poured out a second glass and drank it too, and then he began to change his clothes. You never could see in such clothes, but I can remember them. He put on a very high, stiff, shiny collar, the sort that made you hold your chin up all the time. He put up a white waistcoat with a pattern on it, and arranged a gold watch chain across the front. He put his best frock coat, and the one he kept for weddings and funerals. He got out his best tall hat and polished it up. Then there was the vase of flowers, put there by Aunt Letty, on his dressing table. He took one and put it in his buttonhole. He took a clean handkerchief, a lovely one, such as you couldn't buy today, out of the little left-hand drawer, and put a few drops of scent on it. He took out his eyeglass. He took out his eyeglass with the thick black ribbon, and screwed it into his eye. Then he looked at himself in the mirror. Children have one kind of silliness, you know, and grown-ups have another kind. At this moment, Uncle Andrew was beginning to be the silly in the very grown-up way. Now that the witch was no longer in the same room with him, he was quite forgetting quickly how she had frightened him, and thinking more and more of her wonderful beauty. He kept saying to himself,
Damn fine woman, sir. Damn fine woman. Superb creature.
He had also somehow managed to forget that it was the children who had gotten hold of this superb creature, and he felt himself that by his magic he had called her out of unknown worlds. Silly.
Andrew, my boy, he said to himself as he looked into the class, you're a devilish well-preserved fellow for your age. A distinguished-looking man, sir.
You see, the foolish old man was actually beginning to imagine that the witch would fall in love with him. The 2 drinks probably had something to do with it. So he had his best clothes, but he was, in any case, as vain as a peacock. That is why he had become a magician. He unlocked the door and went downstairs, and sent the housemaid in to fetch a hansom. Everyone had lots of servants in those days, and looked into the drawing-room. There, as he expected, he found Aunt Letty. She was busy mending the mattress. It lay on the floor near the window, and she was kneeling on it.
Aunt Letitia, my dear, said Uncle Andrew. I have to go out. Just lend me £5 or so. There's a good gal.
Gel was the way he pronounced
girl.
No, Andrew dear, said Aunt Letty in her... No, Andrew dear, said Aunt Letty in her firm and quiet voice, without getting up to look from her work. I've told you 1,000 times, without a number, that I will not lend you money.
Now, pray don't be troublesome, my dear gal, said Uncle Andrew. It's most important. I will put me in a deucedly awkward position if you don't.
Andrew, said Aunt Letty, looking him straight in the face, I wonder you are not ashamed to ask me. I wonder you are not ashamed to ask me for money. There was a long and dull story for a grown-up kind of thing. There was long, dull sort of grown-up kind behind these words. All you need to know is about it is Uncle Andrew with managing dear Letty's business matters for her, and never doing any work, and running up large bills for brandy and cigars, which Aunt Letty had paid again and again, made her a good deal poorer than she had been 30 years ago.
My dear gal, said Uncle Andrew, you don't understand. Why, I shall have some quite unexpected expenses today. I do have a little entertaining to do. Come on now, don't be tiresome.
And who, pray tell, are you going to entertain, Andrew? Asked Aunt Letty.
A most distinguished visitor has just arrived.
Distinguished fiddlesticks, said Aunt Letty. There hasn't been a ring at the bell for at least an hour. For the last hour. At the moment the door was suddenly flung open. Aunt Letty looked round and saw with amazement that enormous woman, splendidly dressed, with bare arms and flashing eyes, stood in the doorway. It was the witch. Next, we will come to chapter 7. What happened at the front door? We shall see. Next time, Bedtime with Alice. Oh my, I know I had that bookmark. Yeah. Well, it will turn up. Ooh, that felt good. Hi. I'm playing with my voice. I don't know why. It's just weird. This is just something I can do. It's just I'm a mimic. Nah. Anyway, weirdness. Oh. I love you. Good night.